Hello, my name is Peter Love, Ontario's Chief Energy Conservation Officer. The following is a short video about the need for all of us in Ontario to conserve. My colleagues and I at the Ontario Power Authority have produced it in the hope that this presentation will help you understand why it is so critical that the province reduce its consumption of electricity. Why you should think, believe, and act. Thank you.
You wouldn't let this happen in your house, minute after minute, hour after hour, day after day.
You'd be calling in a plumber right away. So why are you letting this happen with your hydro? Or I should say, electricity.
Of course, we call it hydro because this was Ontario's first large and sustainable source of electricity, beginning over 100 years ago. But referring to electricity as hydro today is inaccurate because our power comes from a wide mix of sources, including nuclear, coal, wind, and even the sun. Water is, however, an interesting metaphor for how Ontarians think about electricity today. Both of them are utilities. Some of us even pay for them on the same bill, and we believe electricity is just as abundant.
But you wouldn't just head out to work and leave all the taps running, would you? Of course not.
Well, my job as Ontario's Chief Energy Conservation Officer is to convince people to treat electricity with the same respect they do this other resource, I hope even more so.
Because unlike water, electricity has to be created, generated sometimes hundreds of miles away from where it is used, and transmitted into your home.
And available 24 hours a day without interruption from this tiny little outlet.
They're all over your house and workplace, and each one costs a couple of bucks.
This represents the sum total of how most of us relate to electricity today. My job is to convince you of the economic, environmental, and social imperatives of using less electricity.
Like water, Canadians are amongst the largest consumers of electricity in the world. We gobble down power like we're at an all-you-can-eat buffet as if there were no consequences to this kind of high-volume diet.
Well, there are. Ontario's electricity diet is so all-consuming that our power infrastructure simply can't handle the load, and it's growing daily.
You didn't think all these new homes were going to power themselves, did you?
Do you ever stop to think that every television set you buy, every computer, monitor, printer, cell phone you use, even this little iPod increases the amount of electricity you use?
There are 4.5 million homes in Ontario. 10 years ago, few of us had a computer in our home. Now, many have 2 or more. If you look at the extensive use of high technology in business today, most every business can now be considered high-powered. At each point in the production process, from office work to heavy industry, electricity drives our productivity, profits, and potential.
Here in Ontario, Canada's economic engine, that's millions upon millions of computers using more power, and all of it drawn from an electricity system that wasn't designed for this type of capacity.
Even when you shut off your computer or your home theater system or even your microwave, they are still fed by electricity, dripping into them watt by watt from a power grid that is in desperate need of an overhaul.
Ontario's electricity system needs fixing, and that's going to take time. Decades, perhaps more. Even as we begin to rebuild our capacity to generate electricity, our demand for the use continues to grow.
The cost of this overhaul will be in the billions. The price of this utility, as we call it, will have to rise to cover this cost. The era of cheap electricity is over, but there is some good news.
Conserving electricity is less expensive than producing it. Producing less power reduces greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change. Ontarians have to conserve electricity. So how do we get them to do that?
First, we have to get people to actually think about electricity. That's hard because people can't see it. This tunnel will be over 10 kilometers long.
It's twice as wide as the one running under the English Channel, yet it's invisible, buried almost 150 meters underground. While this tunnel project in Niagara will be a new, clean and reliable source of electricity, enough to power 160,000 homes a year, it increases a big barrier to conservation. It's invisible. Most of what we truly see of electricity is the product of its use, and we know
If we can't see a problem, we're not likely to fix it.
it's as if the entire province, every one of us, every business, hospital, and school has high blood pressure. Yet we're walking around every day mindless to the problem because we can't see it or feel it.
Our doctors determine that we have a blood pressure problem by strapping one of these on our arms and giving us the hard numbers. I can't do that with electricity. So, if you've started to at least think about electricity, how can I get you to believe that you need to conserve it? This is how you think you pay for electricity, a bill from your local electricity provider or so-called hydro company. But there's another way we all pay. As a taxpayer, we're paying for electricity every day.
An important cost of delivering healthcare, education, and services like fresh water, community pools, and arenas is electricity. How would you rather see your tax dollars used? See your hospital spend more money for power or nurses? Electricity savings in a school board could fund another teacher. In a municipality, another daycare provider. The cost of energy in every part of our lives is going to keep rising. You've seen the gas pumps, and it's got you thinking about buying more fuel-efficient cars like a hybrid. I did. Mine's even got a solar power collector on the roof.
Saving energy not only helps put money in our pocketbooks, but is really good for reducing the impact many forms of power generation have on our environment. Conservation is not about doing without, it's about doing more effectively, and reducing the impact of the environment. It not only saves money, but makes money. Conservation and its cousin energy efficiency creates new businesses and new jobs, as new skills and talents are required in engineering, technology, construction, even in law. Building codes set minimum energy performance standards. In Ontario, we recently improved our codes to be among the best in the world, but more can and is being done.
It's very encouraging to see new buildings like this. It's an eco-suite that goes way beyond our building code.
That's because this company listened to their customers, they know people want to invest in energy efficiency, and this is what you get. A new, exciting economic future is on the horizon. I call it the energy efficient economy. Dividends are already being paid out.
You can see it here, amongst the beer, the popcorn, and the ball players. Home to the Toronto Blue Jays and the Argonauts.
Rogers Centre has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars on high-efficiency energy and operations. When they first took over this building, they found that most of the lights inside the stadium weren't on all the time. They couldn't even find some light switches. Not now. Jay's president and CEO, Paul Godfrey, says he's much happier now that he's spending more of his power budget on hitters rather than wasted electricity.
Building owners are starting to get it. Many of them are taking advantage of lake water cooling, cold water drawn from deep within Lake Ontario to cool their buildings at far less cost and electricity use than traditional air conditioning.
Of course, I still have to get a lot of the Toronto office towers to turn off more of their lights at night and during the day. Ontario homeowners and businesses are starting to believe.
Together, we are starting to act. Ontario's electricity system is beginning to be repaired and made ready, but fixes like this one won't generate new power for years to come. By that time, the province's power needs will have already grown beyond the new electricity that this new tunnel will help provide. In less than 20 years, Ontario's power consumption is expected to rise from a peak of 26,000 megawatts to close to 34,000. So we have a choice. We can either generate it or conserve our way to get there. The right choice is conservation, and our goal is 6,300 megawatts. But to put that in perspective, those 6,300 megawatts of conservation we have to create is about equal to the total amount of electricity that we generate today at Ontario's coal-fired plants.
These are going to be shut down by 2014, so we better act now. Fortunately, some companies are already making headway on their own plans to reduce the juice. For some, they're lopping off their power consumption in such large chunks, it's like pulling bananas off a bunch. Here and at over 100 Loblaw stores across Ontario, this large grocery retailer has been systematically cutting back on its lighting and air conditioning whenever the province's peak electricity demand needed a quick cutback. If you were in one of their stores when this happened, you probably wouldn't even have noticed it because the company cut back their power consumption step by step until the power level demand in the province returned to normal. Electricity represents a huge portion of the cost of operating a forest products mill, and in periods of peak demand can represent the tipping point for Ontario's power supply. Tembec, one of Ontario's largest forest products companies, signed up for OPA's demand response program. It provided them with the necessary incentives to shift their production of products like newsprint to off-peak hours when our electricity system had sufficient generating capacity. And it all happens behind the scenes invisibly. Yet each morning, your newspaper is still there to greet your day. As I said before, almost every business is now high-powered. An Ontario company, Regen, is combining these antennae with cutting-edge technology to get electrically powered equipment to work together in the same way as bees do. It's called swarming. The goal is to minimize the peak power these appliances use collectively at any given point in time. The devices are attached to electrical equipment that normally cycles on and off, such as air conditioners, compressors, and pumps. As a result, the electricity demand can be shifted in time so that all the loads are not on at the same time. It's unfortunate that the same thing can't be done right now in your own home. Many of the major power drains in your house, like your television, DVD player, and sound system and microwave, use a surprising amount of power even when you're not using them. But there is a simple solution to this, and it doesn't involve swarm technology. It's a power bar. And with one push of a button, you can take action to reduce the amount of electricity you use every day. Conservation is at the cornerstone of Ontario Power Authority's plan to revitalize the province's electricity infrastructure. Yet while I continue to be encouraged by the changes I see, I realize that unless we change our relationship with electricity, any plans we make to address our out-of-date electricity system had better come with fingers crossed as standard equipment. As it concerns energy conservation, hope is not a strategy. Here's what I need you to do. 1, I want you and everyone in Ontario to think about electricity, to be mindful of it every time you use it. 2, I need you to believe that you should be and can be using less electricity, and to believe that it's in all our best interests to reduce our need to generate power. And 3, I need you to act and truly use less of this limited and expensive resource. Only through action will the challenges we face as a power-hungry province be addressed and answered. Our future depends on it.